as you've just been told, my name's Shari Breen. I'm actually head of science operations these days, thankfully. And so today I'm going to talk to you about EDI at the SKAO, and particularly about the EDI Implementation Plan. So I did just want to call out, there's a few other names on this first slide. They are other members of the EDI task force who came up with the implementation plan, and particularly Lewis Ball, who's my boss. He's the director of operations. He chaired this work, but there's also a number of other members from the organisation, including representation from human resources, which is of course very important when talking about EDI matters. So I assume that everyone is aware what EDI stands for. It's equity, diversity and inclusion in this instance. So just in case, we'll move on. Don't really know. Okay, right. So I thought I'd start out by who am I? What gives me right to come and talk to you about EDI today? As I told you, I'm head of science operations. This means that I'm very conscious of EDI aspects for future users of the SKA, as well as SKAO staff, because of course I am one of them. I was a member of the SKAO EDI working group, as was Philippa actually, who I see has just joined this call and who is your next speaker. A member of the SKAO EDI task force, as well as the working group. And like many who contribute to EDI efforts in astronomy, I have no formal qualification, and I have no formal fractional FTE dedicated to EDI either. And so that means that a lot of this work gets done on the back of enthusiasm and care rather than formal qualification. But nonetheless, we do our best, and I think that we make a lot of progress this way. So on the right, I just wanted to, in case you can't see my face, that's my face. I'm the one on the right, obviously, not the one on the left, which is Bailey. That's my dog, the director of goodness. And sometimes I have to defer to him for matters of EDI. He is very inclusive and loves everyone equally. So I just wanted to start really by telling you, SKAO is really committed to EDI principles. I cut out this lengthy statement from one of our documents just in case the audio wasn't so good on this call today. But I'm just going to read it to you. So we're committed to the principles of EDI, and we have ambitious EDI objectives, including making the SKAO an equal opportunities employer, aiming to recruit and retain the most talented individuals regardless of gender, race, disability, age, sexual orientation, marital status, religion, or nationality. This is a key component of making the SKAO one of the best, if not the best, employers in science, building on the values around which the SKAO was created and will operate. On gender in particular, SKAO wishes to become an employer of choice for women in STEM. Now, I think it's a pretty serious statement from us, and there's a lot of work to do to get us to that position. But having such an ambitious goal, I think, is really important as an organisation to remember where we're going. So that statement does make a comment about building on the values of which SKAO was created. And in fact, these statements are supported by the preamble of the convention in which parties have committed themselves to an organisation where equality and diversity are promoted and respected. So where are we at the moment? I just wanted to acknowledge that there's a huge amount of work that goes into EDI that falls outside of the implementation plan. So before I get into that, I did just want to give you a flavour for some of the stuff that has already been happening at SKAO. Like many places, EDI happens through many avenues. Most institutions now, I think, in astronomy have a code of conduct. And of course, we've had a code of conduct for quite a long time now, although I will tell you in a minute, as part of the task force, the implementation plan, we've updated that code of conduct. There's also, of course, individual efforts. Individuals in institutions can do a lot to contribute to EDI in their own area and can influence a lot of what's going on. But HR in our organisation really bear the brunt of a lot of the work, the foundation for EDI, working on policy documents. For example, one of those that's related to EDI is our values, which has recently been updated and sent to all of us. And these are, in fact, those the circles on the top right of my talk. So if you can read that, I'm not sure how big your screen is, but the one on the left is diversity and inclusion. The very first circle that comes up is diversity and inclusion. And I think that that's really important. We also have policies on standards of conduct and behaviour, code of ethics, and an equality, diversity and inclusion policy. HR also spend a lot of time making sure we can attract a diverse pool of people. We recruit a lot at the moment at SKA, and so this is a really big part of the challenge that we have. So a couple of things I'll just mention that they've been doing recently, creating a library of approved selection criteria so that when people like me as a hiring manager put out a job ad, I'm not having selection criteria that are too long or have too much jargon or have very complicated language or quite advanced English words, for example. I mean, there's no need for that. And so just removing some of the issues that hiring managers can put into job ads, it goes a long way. Reducing the number of mandatory criteria so then we can reach the broadest possible pool, promoting our values, adding diversity statements to our job ads, stating what we care about at the SKA, reviewing interview templates, all with eye to reaching diverse candidates through perhaps targeted searches, making sure panels are trained and all of those kinds of things. We have a new career framework at SKA. This gives us a transparency over what the different levels are, what pays they relate to, and it allows us to think about career progression. We do monitor demographic data through all stages of applicants and hires. We have an onboarding portal, there's staff training, all of the things that I'm sure many of you recognise through your own institutions. So that's where we've been starting from. And so then what do we do to advance our EDI work? I wanted to give you a little bit of context about how we got to this EDI implementation plan, which I'll tell you more about. So in June 2020, which seems like yesterday, but I guess it's getting a couple of years ago now, our Director General charged the EDI working group with reviewing SKA practices and processes with the goal of ensuring discrimination and bias in our workplace and recruitment processes were totally absent. I mean, that again, a very big goal. The working group put in a huge effort, and in January 2021, we did an EDI staff climate survey, which gave us a really good idea about how the staff at SKA felt about EDI and showed us a couple of areas where we knew that we could do a lot better. And one of those things I think for me that it really highlighted was that not everyone thinks like me, that communication of what EDI is, why it's important and how we should be applying it wasn't really at the forefront of everybody, not every staff member's mind, which is totally fine, right? And it really means that the communication and explanations as to why you do something is extremely important. So in June 2021, the EDI working group put out a very, very detailed and ambitious plan with 23 areas for action. And under some of those 23 areas for action, there were even more details, like lots of things that contributed to that area of action where we wanted to see change. In hindsight, it was a lot of work that needed to happen. And in December 2021, our executive leadership team said they welcome and support the recommendations, but set up a task force to deliver an implementation plan. Okay, so we have this massive amount of work that we want to do. Let's prioritize it and work out how we're going to implement it. And that led to the delivery of the Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Task Force Implementation Plan, which you can see the front page of the right. And this is quite fresh. This was published in October 2022 and only shared with staff in the last month or two. So what's in it? Now we're down to 9 actions that were identified in the EDI Task Force Plan. They strongly align with the SKAO values, and they essentially support 3 themes that we decided were the highest priority for us to work on. So you can see those there in bold. That's gender balance, diversity that reflects the member countries, and equity of access to SKA activities, including science. I'm going to talk about that one a little bit more because that one is something that's very close to my heart in my role a bit later. So within those themes, the areas for immediate action were identified as focus on diversity and equity through recruitment. Now, I did just mention this very briefly, but we're going through a stage at SKAO at the moment of quite intensive recruitment. You know, we're ramping up, as some of you have probably seen. We're officially in the construction period now of SKA, and so our staffing profile is really ramping up. And we know that if we start off with a diverse staff, we are more likely to continue recruiting a diverse staff. So that's extremely important to us at the moment. We need to embed equity inclusion in the tools and systems of the observatory and its culture as we grow. So again, this one is really timely for us because we're developing the tools, and it's much easier to fold in these aspects as the tools are being developed than have to go back and change them after the fact. And the third thing I think is related to what I was saying when I spoke about the climate survey and the importance of communication. We need to continually communicate our commitment to the principles of EDI, and including measuring and reporting on outcomes and using metrics and KPIs to drive improvement. In a science organisation, I'm sure most of you can agree, we like a graph. We like to see the data. Okay, we're working on this. Show me the evidence as to why. And I think that is a really important factor when dealing with graph lovers such as ourselves. I did just put a little clause at the bottom. Other aspects of EDI, of course, remain important to us, but these are just our current priorities and the things that we think we can tackle at the moment. All right, so I'm briefly going to step through the 9 actions and then focus on some of them in a little bit more detail. The first one might seem quite simple. SKAO's core EDI documents must be approved, signed, made available and promoted to all relevant stakeholders. We noticed during the working group and the task force days that some of the core documents hadn't gone through the standard SKAO document approval process, and they weren't always in the location that you'd expect to find them. So if you want people to be abiding by certain policies, or at least know about them, making them available, easily available to them is a really important step. So hopefully that one is quite clear. The second one, clearly communicate our EDI, commitment to EDI to all observatory and collaboration staff. Make sure we tell them why. You know, we are doing this. Why are we doing this? And backing up all of the things that we do, and hopefully making it so more and more people are thinking about EDI without even realizing it. Updates to the recruitment processes should continue with an urgent deliverable being to target gender and diversity outcomes. Number 4 is implement safety and training measures that follow best practice for staff living at remote sites. So this is an action that is, I think, really, really important to SKAO. Most of you, I'm sure, know a little bit about the SKA, given the flavour of this meeting. We are building telescopes in very remote sites, and we need to, because those telescopes need to be as far away from people and radio interference as possible. But that also means that we have a number of challenges. Ensuring physical and psychological safety of staff at those sites is a really, really big thing that we need to be thinking about, and making the accommodations necessary to ensure that staff feel safe. All staff are trained, people know what's expected of them, and there are avenues if something goes wrong. Number 5 is adopt a calendar of events and mark those events across the observatory as a means of celebrating a commitment to EDI. So that can be things like celebrating women and girls in science, or culturally significant days, those kinds of things, which I think not only promotes the EDI agenda, but also fosters an atmosphere of inclusion, which is really important. Number 6, commit to accessibility, ensuring appropriate building codes are adhered to, and ensure equitable access to SKA activities. So building codes isn't a very difficult one. In the countries that we operate, there are very specific codes that need to be adhered to. But we also should be considering things like, if we have an SKA meeting somewhere else in the world, what is that premises like, and is it accessible to everyone? SKAO meetings must have a code of conduct for meetings, which has been updated, and I will expand on in a second. We should also be reporting publicly on diversity KPIs annually, perhaps, in order to assess performance and drive positive change. So reporting publicly, I think, is a really important thing. I mean, from my perspective, absolutely, because we're all in this together. And if we don't hide our diversity statistics, then we know where each other's at, and perhaps we can collaborate and help achieve the overall goals in astronomy that of course we're all invested in. Implement a mechanism to oversee and advise on EDI performance and consistency with best practice, and I'll tell you a bit about that one too. So action 2, I don't expect you to remember all of these, but I did just want to highlight something that we've done recently. So this is about communication with the staff, and something that was delivered recently that actually took quite a lot of effort was Pulse. Most of you probably don't know what this is. Pulse is our SKAO internal newsletter, which goes around monthly. And we made a decision to focus an entire issue of Pulse on EDI. And this is where we first communicated the task force implementation plan with staff, but we didn't just send that around. We sent around a number of articles, some data backing ourselves up, backing up, sorry, the actions, and also some personalized stories about how EDI issues touch members of our own staff, but also what it means for our future users, to try and give everyone the right context and hope that the implementation plan was well received. And I think that was absolutely the case. This was a lot of work, mainly by our communications team at SKAO. So action 3 was around recruitment. And again, I just thought I'd point out some of the tangible actions that sit underneath this much broader area. So a couple of the things in the implementation plan I've just replicated here. We have now diversity champions sitting on all our recruitment panels. And that's really empowering a member of that panel to call out, make sure that we have an eye on diversity at all times throughout our recruitment. We should take action to identify diverse candidate pools, including targeted actions. Sorry, I'm just going to have a little sip of water. We should continue to work to ensure job ads follow best practice. Job ads are the point where people decide whether to apply, and it really affects the diversity of your candidate pool, which then affects your opportunities for hire. So that's a really big part, I think, of recruitment, and something that we focused on. We have a welcome portal, an induction process, and we should update those and make sure candidates, even when they apply, are aware of what would happen if they were recruited to the SKA. Make sure candidates know about our commitment to staff training and what that means for career progression. And finally, review our employee value proposition in relation to gender equality. So areas like parental leave, job sharing, part-time appointments, support for childcare while travelling, support on return from career breaks, and our flexible work policy. So, I'm not sure what's happening. It says that my screen is paused.
No, it's working. It's fine. We can see you. We can hear you.
Okay, because it shows the wrong thing for me. Just yell out if it's sure. Changes, because now I can't see the slides at all.
We can see the slides.
All right. I can't move them though. It says it's been paused.
Do you want to log out and log in, perhaps?
I'm just gonna.
Yeah, now you stop sharing. Perhaps you can start resharing.
Yep. I guess this was my computer.
Yeah, looks like.
Okay.
Or you can send a presentation and we can try to.
No, it's fine. I just had to. I had to find it had completely gone. Just 1 second. Sorry about this.
Yes, it works.
How did I click share and not? All right. Sorry for that little intermission. Everything looks okay now?
Yes, it's perfect. Yeah.
All right. So action 6, this is the one that I work a lot on. So I'm charged with implementing this part of the action plan. And so I know a lot about what's going on in this space. And I think for this particular audience, this is the important one. What can you, as a potential user of the SKA, expect from us? So just listed here the highest priority steps for implementation of accessibility in our tools and also equity of our processes. So we have committed that all major SKAO platforms, tools, documents, activities, premises, and meetings, public websites, recruitment portal, intranet, Confluence, Science User Portal, etc., should meet relevant accessibility guidelines. Now, at the moment, one of the things me and my team are working on is actually setting a policy. What is the minimum requirement for accessibility for all of those things that we are currently working on? SKAO platforms should include a public statement on the observatory's commitment to accessibility and also include an opportunity for feedback. So we might think that we're doing a really good job with a tool, but of course we are not everyone. And so having that feedback opportunity is really important. We should be doing regular and independent assessments of our premises and our platforms and our processes to make sure that they're compliant. And if they're not, rectify that. That final one is just about a specific UK government accessibility scheme to register with that. So equity and accessibility already starting to appear in policy documents because we've really started shining a light on the need to be working on this now. So the access rules and regulations of the SKA Observatory is a high-level policy document and currently has a statement. It's still in draft form. It hasn't been signed off yet. but I don't see that there'll be any issues with this. The SKAO is committed to providing accessible and equitable processes and tools to facilitate the delivery of the best science of the highest impact from the broadest possible SKA scientific user community. So there's a little bit more detail later on in that document, but I think that that's the headline statement. This should be reflected, of course, in the design of all of our user-facing products, including those required for the preparation and submission of proposals, associated documentation, as I said in the previous slide. There's also a more vague statement, but it's in there. The scientific assessment process there are many, many things that it will do, but be consistent with SKAO's commitment to equity and inclusion. We have a brand new website. Hopefully many of you have seen it and had a chance to play around with it. We're talking at the moment about an independent review to make sure that website's accessible and really highlight to us areas where it's not and give us an opportunity to fix that. On the right, those of you who know much about accessibility will probably tell me straight up, our sensitivity calculator, which is currently under development, will not meet those guidelines. But the point is that we know that and we're working hard at the moment to make sure that our sensitivity calculator is accessible to everyone. You probably are well aware that if you become an SKAO user, you will be delivered data by an SKA regional centre, and that is where you will log on to do a lot of your data, create advanced data products and do your science analysis. For SKA to be able to deliver on these accessibility and equity goals, we need that SRC network to be on board. And at the moment, we're discussing high-level principles of the SRC net, and of course, these things are being discussed. And so we hope that they will appear in that set of principles. But even without that, some of our prototyping teams are currently working on the SRC science platform, so where scientists will log on and do all their sciencing. And they already have statements about accessibility noted in there, which is absolutely fantastic to see. I'm not going to talk about this for very long. I did just want to highlight that we are currently coming up with an accessibility policy so that we can send it to all of our software teams. We have software being generated for the SKA internationally. I mean, our teams are very well distributed, and so we need a central policy such that everyone knows what's expected and everyone can comply, and make sure that the output and all of the user-facing tools are consistent with our requirements. So Action 7 was around all meetings requiring a SKA code of conduct. But in the shortened version, what it didn't tell you is that we also identified a need for guidance to be presented to all external facilitators and trainers. So those people that came to the SKAO to train us on anything, they should know what's important to us and what our values are. And so there's a document that's been generated that does that. The action says there must be a clearly identified mechanism for reporting of concerns and breaches, etc., which of course is very important. So we have a new code of conduct for meetings, and it's available. It's on our public website through this link here. The main change, I mean, the words are a bit different than our previous code of conduct, but the main change that we made was to outline expected behaviours. So rather have a document that says, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. It starts off by saying, you know, this is what we expect and this is why. So please act in this way. And then it goes on to, of course, these things aren't appropriate. And if some of that unexpected behaviour happens, then how you report it and what the consequences might be. you can have a look at that quote there. I think that's well, actually no, I might just read part of it to you. All participants must contribute to an environment that encourages the creation and exchange of ideas, recognises and values differences, and celebrates the diversity and contributions made by people of a range of cultures and backgrounds. This statement also appears in our guideline for external facilitators and trainers, along with a lot of other information. Well, it's not very long.
For 2 minutes.
Yeah, no, I'm near the end. So the action 8 was about publicly reporting on data. And I think I have already given you the gist of what that is, and I'm sure you can understand anyway. It's not like we don't report any data at the moment. We report our recruitment data to our council, but there are, of course, many other things that we can do. So extend that to publicly, there's a bit of a leap, but also extend it to all SKA meetings. What is the speaker demographics like, the organising committee, the science users of the future, etc. And a part of this action was to include appropriate comparator in reports. So action 9, which was the very last action, might have been a little bit confusing, given that I've just spoken about a working group and a task force. Neither of these bodies are long-lived. So we're really in a stage now where we have to think about how we move forward with the governance of EDI across the SKA. It needs to be sustainable. It can't just be people doing it in their evenings and on their weekends. And so thinking about dedicated resource, for example, but of course there are other options. As I said, this task force implementation plan doesn't cover everything in EDI. And it called out specifically at the end that things that aren't included in it that should also be really important in sort of more than a year time scale are thinking about junior development through junior levels and how that affects diversity. So things like apprenticeships, internships, etc. But also thinking about working on fostering an atmosphere of inclusive and community spirit at SKAO. All right, so this is my my summary. If you take nothing else away, hopefully you can take away that we are committed to EDI, both for our employees and our broader SKA community, including future science users. And I'll just leave the rest there.
All right, thank you very much, Shari. Excellent initiative taken by the SKAO, and it's an example for all the mega projects to follow. Do we have any questions?
There is online.
Yes, that's from Prajwal. Yes, Prajwal.
Can I ask?
Yes, please. Yes.
Yeah, thanks. That was very, very comprehensive and very useful as well. I was wondering if you have any plans to monitor this sort of diversity climate, equity climate within the observatory and perhaps across the consortium, if not monitor, even just survey what people feel and how that matches with the aspirations.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, right? I mean, we learned a lot when we did a climate survey a couple of years ago now, because we in our group, we were all quite like-minded people, and making sure that the whole observatory, having some understanding of what the whole observatory thought was really important. So I think this is one of the things that why we need a long-term EDI body, because we've got this action, this implementation plan. We're going to start implementing things, and that would be a really great time to find out as we progress through that implementation how staff are feeling. Your point about more broadly in the community. So, I mean, a proxy that we always use are members of the science working groups. It's another good point, and it's one that I think that we should be doing too. So,
long live India and France friendship.